Welcome to But Enough About Me, a podcast about other people. My name is Tyler Andrews. I'm a Nashville-based photographer, husband, and father. I'm trying to collect the stories of everyone around me, whether we're best friends or total strangers. I want to know what made you the person you are today. Welcome to episode 3 of the podcast. I cannot wait for you guys to hear this one. This is a good friend of mine. He also happens to be my pastor. And right now, right off the top, I just want to make sure that it's clear this is not about preaching or converting anyone any more than talking to Abdu was about converting you to Islam or talking to Crystal was about making you Amish. This is just a person's interview. Yes, religion plays a major part of it, but that's not what this is about. This is his story. He is a husband and a father to 2 beautiful little girls. He is a pastor at the church that I go to, Experience Community Church in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. You can find out more about the church there at the website, experiencecc.com. Sorry, again, that's experiencecc.com. He has an old car he loves to work on. He loves tattoos. He likes good coffee. He is an excellent judge of television. Twin Peaks is his favorite show. And everything else I'm going to leave to him. It is my very great privilege to introduce to you my good friend, Mr. Corey Trimble.
Hey, Corey. Thanks for coming.
Hello. Hello, Tyler.
Tell me about yourself. When were you born?
I was born in September 1979. I was born in St. Charles, which is kind of the northern side of St. Louis. Lived there as a kid for a while, and my father worked for American Airlines. And my father's originally from L.A. He's from L.A. My grandfather's from L.A., the Huntington Beach area.
Okay.
And my mother is originally from St. Louis. And, but they met in high school in St. Louis and got married and right after high school. But my father worked for American. That eventually took us to Dallas.
What did he do for American Airlines?
He was a mechanic,
Okay.
kind of / engineer.
Okay.
Worked on everything. Did really well for himself. Was there for 32 years or something.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we moved from St. Louis when I was a kid to Dallas-Fort Worth area.
When was that? You said when you were a kid.
Timelines are not my best. I was elementary school age.
Okay.
And moved to Fort Worth, and because that's where American Airlines headquarters is. And we were there for a little bit, lived in a couple of houses there, and then eventually moved to the Nashville area because of the airport. Nashville is opening up their hub,
Mm-hmm.
and it was either going to be Miami, Florida, or Nashville, and we moved to Nashville. But a couple of years after we moved to Nashville, I can't remember how many. I was 11 or 12, where I guess my story kind of changed a lot.
Okay, well, before you do that,
Sure.
let me go back.
Okay.
Tell me more about the beginning of your life, about elementary school, about Dallas, about the St. Louis area.
That's what's hard about my story. I often, when I tell my story, what's hard is I don't have a lot of memories until I was about 11.
Okay. So what's your earliest memory?
Well, and it's interesting you ask. That's how I tell my story. Is my first vivid memory that I have is I'm upstairs at our house in the Mount Juliet area of Nashville, and I was upstairs. We lived in a really big house. We had a big 6-car garage that was added onto the house because my dad was into hot rods and motorcycles, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad worked a lot and then lived in the garage, with all of his toys. And I was upstairs, had my own big bedroom, my own, ensuite bathroom, and was upstairs, and my mother came up and asked me to come downstairs because there needed to be a family meeting. And I went downstairs, and my older sister, she's 5 years older than me, she's down there. My dad's down there. And my first vivid memory is the night they told me they were getting divorced. They said separated, but I knew it was divorce. And what's interesting is we still had our house in St. Louis. We never sold our house. And
2 moves later, and you hadn't sold that.
yeah,
House.
we rented it out to someone. It was in a really cool part of St. Louis, and we just kept the house. And so what was going to happen is my mother was going to move to St. Louis, and shortly after her moving back to St. Louis, my sister was about to start college in Indianapolis, and then I was kind of left with my parents let me decide where do you want to go? Do you want to go to St. Louis or you want to stay here? And kind of where I landed was I stayed in Mount Juliet, but whenever I was not in school, I'd go up to St. Louis. So I kind of had like two homes, two lives.
Sure.
And a set of friends in St. Louis, a set of friends in Mount Juliet.
Yep.
And
this is at 11.
Yeah, I think when all the divorce stuff was done, I was about 12. It was an ugly divorce, and so.
So the first distinct, clear memory you have is of that conversation.
Yeah, it's the first really vivid memory I can really think of. I have little kind of blips of memories, if you will, from when I was a kid. I mean, I remember, we traveled a lot because my dad traveled. We traveled for free. So, I remember traveling, a lot, going to California a lot because that's, my dad's kind of very California, and we'd go to LA a lot and go to Hollywood a lot and stuff. But my first really vivid memory was that.
You said you knew they said separation, but you knew it would be divorce.
Yeah.
I assume that's because you heard fighting and there was tension, or is that not the case?
Well, it was just kind of, we never heard the fighting really, but I mean, like, we never had dinner together. Not one time do I remember the four of us sitting down and having dinner because my father was just so absent. He had cheated on my mother probably more times than, anyone will ever know.
Did you know this at the time?
I didn't, but I knew something was wrong. And then, and then eventually after, my mother putting up with that garbage for decades, she eventually had enough.
Yeah.
And left. So.
Tell me about your sister.
Don't have a very good relationship with my sister. She lives in Chicago now. She's not a bad woman. Spiritually, religiously, we disagree on a lot. And she's a Christian, but of course, like I am. But we're just very different. I always used to make a joke. There's two kinds of people. There's people that like Mariah Carey, and there's people that don't. She likes Mariah Carey, so it's hard to connect with someone who's on such a different extreme than you. But I don't have any hard feelings towards my sister. We just because of, I think, of our circumstances, we've never really been close.
So even back then, you weren't close. I mean, 5 years separated, and
yeah, and she moved out when I was 12.
Okay.
She was out of the house when I was 12.
You said she went to college then?
Yeah, she went to Indianapolis. I was maybe 13, I guess, when she moved out.
Wow, so even she went to a place where, I mean, did you have family in Indianapolis? Or?
No, she went to a school up there in the city in downtown Indianapolis. What was interesting, though, is it left my father and I. And my father just didn't know how to be a parent. Kind of the rule in my house was he would travel a lot. He'd be gone. I was literally that latchkey kid. I would come home and I wore a necklace with a key on it.
Huh.
So when I'm 13 years old, I would just come home and basically just took care of myself all the time.
This is 1992,
92. Yeah, 92. And so I learned how to cook and clean and do my own laundry. And, when I turned 14, I got my motorcycle license. So I took a motorcycle to school every day and got groceries with, put them in my saddlebags and on my bike and my motorcycle. And
wow.
Yeah, which was, seemed cool at the time.
It still seems cool.
Yeah, I was that kid at 14. I was riding Harleys and stuff to school. And
yeah, no, that is cool.
It was.
I feel confident saying that's cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I mean, the circumstances might suck, but that.
And what happened with that is, and now being a parent, you understand how important discipline is. But at 14, I had absolutely none. And so my father would go out of town. He'd go to New York or L.A. or wherever he'd go, and he just, the rule was just don't wreck the house. I don't care if you party, I don't care what you do, just don't wreck the house. And so I didn't wreck the house, and I started smoking dope at 14 and lost my virginity at 14 and would do inhalants and
Oh my gosh.
oh gosh, I mean, yeah, when we couldn't get a hold of real drugs, we'd do all kinds of inhalants and whippets and all kinds of just stupid
I don't even
stuff,
know
man.
what these. I know inhalants. I mean, like aerosol can kind of
Oh yeah,
inhalants.
gasoline, paint, Freon.
Wow.
Idiots. Yeah.
So maybe that's why you don't have any clear memories.
Yeah, that could be the case. I had a friend, his name was Ricky, I played baseball with, and Ricky was a pretty good friend of mine. We went to a Sounds game, Nashville Sounds game one night, and we used to do drugs and stuff together, and went to a Sounds game. We both, loved baseball, played baseball, and he went home that night, and I went home, and Ricky huffed Freon by himself, which was kind of a big no-no because you can pass out.
Yeah.
And Ricky died right after that baseball game, dropped dead, and I was supposed to see him the next day, and that's what actually got me off of, doing inhalants, and so I just stuck to real drugs, at that point. I know. But I was a pallbearer in his funeral, and that kind of woke me up a little bit, not much, but a little bit,
Right.
Jeez. Yeah, but we weren't like a church going family, so I didn't have that in my life, My grandfather, my dad's dad, was a pastor, a good man who I was very close to. I loved him a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he was a pastor, very, charismatic Pentecostal church, and always loved him, respected him, but I was wild, and he, he'd always make a joke. I have a big tattoo on my leg of flames, and he'd always, I remember after I got my tattoo, I was 18, and he'd always tell me that I had one foot in hell, and so... He was a cool guy, though. Such a good man. But as a kid, my dad didn't make us go to church. He didn't display a Christian life, and we really kind of paid a penalty for that. I think not having a root or any kind of a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So,
tell me about high school. Tell me about, or I guess middle school, because that is, how kind of a student were you?
Oh, terrible.
Yeah.
Just awful.
I guess it's not a shock.
Yeah,
but...
no. It's and it's not because I didn't feel like I was not intelligent. I just did not care.
Right.
I played sports, and so I did well enough to not get in trouble. I played tennis, I wrestled, I played basketball, I played baseball for a while. I'm not the greatest athlete, but I was good enough in almost any sport to at least get on the team.
Sure.
And enjoyed it. When I got into high school, I started picking up music, and was with a band in high school and put out a couple of records, and that kind of became my thing. I was very pissed off and angry, and started getting into a lot of like Fugazi and Minor Threat and a bunch of old punk rock and
Yep.
Black Flag and The Clash, and was just angry, and so started to get into that world, and that kind of became my outlet. And
So wait, you go so fast.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's just because you've done this before.
Well, and I think it's because like sometimes I just have a hard time connecting the dots. It's like I remember these highlights, and I'll backtrack though. My would have been my freshman year, 15 maybe. Is that how old you are as a freshman? Something like that.
Something like that.
And my freshman year, I tried to commit suicide my freshman year.
That's a relevant detail.
It is, and I tried 3 times eventually, and I'll get to the third one later. That's kind of the biggest turning point in my life. But the relationship with my father was so broken. He had heart surgery, and he and I had gotten a big argument, and took his heart medication. I ate the entire bottle, and I was just struggling, man. My dad didn't know how to be a dad, and it was just a rough time. High school was a very, very dark time for me. I had a lot of friends. I was very popular, dated a lot of girls, but was just very, very angry, very unsettled. My teachers liked me, even though I didn't do very well, and I was mischievous and, all that stuff. But
Where'd you go to high school?
Mount Juliet
Okay.
High School. I think it's a middle school now. I don't think it's a high school anymore, but it was a bigger school at the time. I don't know how big it is now, But it's a good school. Had good teachers.
What classes did you like?
Always English. Anything with the arts. I went on to eventually get a bachelor's in English, but and I wasn't even phenomenal at grammar. It was just I loved the literature side. I loved writing, and yeah, so I got along really well with my English teachers. Fun story. You'll like this.
Please.
So I won't say her name because I don't want to ever embarrass her, but she comes to the church now. But I had a teacher. My junior year, I got disowned by my father. I was 17 years old and I got disowned. He kicked me out of the house.
Man.
And so my mother moved down from, I think she was living, I can't remember where she was living at the time, but she ended up buying a house in Lebanon. And I ended up moving in with my mother into my junior year. My mother, I love her to death, but she was such an enabler. She, she'd lie and stuff on the paper so I could keep going to Mount Juliet High School, even though I didn't live in Mount Juliet. But, it's so, but I had a teacher my junior year, and I smoked like a train all the time, smoking cigarettes. And this one teacher I had a really good connection with, she knew about the situation with my dad disowning me, and every day in English class, I'd say, "Hey, can I go out and I just got to get something out of my car." And she knew exactly what I was doing. I'd sit on the hood of my car in the parking lot and smoke a cigarette. And man, this is a good story. This is one of my favorite stories. So my junior year, this might have been my senior year. Again, I can't remember things. They passed a law that students or teachers, if you were caught smoking cigarettes, teacher would get fired, students would get suspension or whatever.
I think I remember that.
Yeah.
This is like 96-ish?
Yeah, 97 maybe, 96, 97, something like that.
Yeah, I definitely remember this then.
And so that year, I think it was the beginning of my senior year, 98 maybe, 97, 98. Yeah, it was 97, beginning of my senior year. We were at a pep rally, a basketball pep rally, and the mascot, this bear, because the Mount Juliet Bears. Me and a buddy, Josh, I said, "Hey, I think Chris. I can't remember the kid's last name now." I said, "Hey, I think Chris so and so is the mascot." I said, "I'm gonna get a running start, and I'm just gonna lay him out, man. I'm just gonna tackle this bear in front of the whole school in the gym." So I did. I got up. And I run full force, man, and just lay the mascot out. I mean, like, I'm parallel to the ground in the air, and I just lay this mascot out. Come to find out, it was a girl named Kate. Oh. and I lay Kate out on the floor. The head of the bear shoots off, and the whole school sees that I just tackled a girl. And
oh my gosh!
And so the two principals came up to me, Miss Meeks and Miss Linville, I remember, and they came up and they said, "Trimble, you will never come to another pep rally again." And so back to how this ties into the smoking, though. So they just passed this law about teachers not being able to smoke either. So I'm outside smoking on the hood of my car, and I glance over. And I see Miss Linville and Miss Meeks hotboxing a cigarette in the car 2 or 3 spaces away. And what's funny is I go up and I go to take a drag on my cigarette and I make eye contact right as they're taking a drag on their cigarettes. And we just stare at each other and I just smoke my cigarette. And
That's right.
Because they know
right
that I could get them fired. So I sat there and smoked and I threw down my cigarette, walked right back into the school. And the next pep rally, I went right in and sat right in front of him. And that's how I got back into pep rallies. Man, but I was that kid. I was just a punk. So, yeah.
That's fantastic.
But I met my wife in high school, who was a straight A student and just perfect. So, yeah, she was great.
What was your first love? Who? Maybe not who. That's probably too personal.
No, my first Alicia, my wife, she's been the only girl I've ever loved.
Really?
I met her at such a young age. I mean, I met her at 17, and she became my god, man. I mean, it was. I didn't have God in my life. So I met this beautiful girl. She's Italian. She had lived in Europe when she was a kid, like just all this cool stuff about her. She was a musician,
Mm-hmm.
and she was just gorgeous. And I remember seeing her for the first time, being like, who in the hell is that up in the bleachers? And I just, just beautiful. And I got to, I asked everyone about it. I was terrified of her. I had dated so many girls, but something about her just scared me. She was just so perfect. And I remember we went on a couple of dates. She actually asked me out because I was too afraid to ask her out. And
Wait a minute. She asked you out?
she did, man. She walked up to me in the hallway, and my wife's very confident. And she just walked up to me and goes, "Hey, you want to go like bowling or something sometime?" And I was like, "Yeah, yes, please." And I took her out. We didn't go bowling. I think we just went to downtown Nashville and just walked around.
Why did a beautiful, competent, well-traveled musician have any interest in you?
Well, I know this is a podcast, so you can't see me. So no, I'm just joking.
That is not what I meant.
No, not at all. I don't know what it was, man. It was, and she was a good kid. Like, came from a stable like home and good Catholic Italian family, and like,
Oh, so you were the bad boy.
I was,
Okay.
but which is weird, man, because like, I don't know if my wife's like attracted to that. I don't know what it was. It was weird, but we went out a couple of times, and I think it was our third date, something like that. It was real early on. I told her like, "Hey, I love you. I'm gonna marry you. Like, this is it." She thought I was insane, but I knew it, man. I just knew it right off the bat.
Tell me about walking around Nashville.
This is back before Nashville was Nashville. That's back when you could you could go down there, and it's before, I guess like Broad and Second have always been pretty touristy, but you could go down there.
Especially Second.
Yeah. But you could go down there, and there was actually some pretty cool, like, all-age clubs and bars and places where you could see some music, even when we were in high school. And I knew a bunch of musicians, and so we'd go down there and see these bands. And, Nashville was different back then. I hate going to Nashville now. I don't feel like I'm cool enough to hang out in Nashville anymore. But it used to be our stomping grounds, man. You just go down there, you'd park, and you could actually park down there.
Yeah, on the street for free.
Yeah, you could park, and we'd go down there and park, and you just walk around First and Second, and it was cool,
Did you ever go over to JJ's Market?
Where's that at?
It was over Division.
I remember Division. Yeah,
That was my hangout.
really.
We would have run into each other there.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
There used to be a really cool place, 328, which was a pretty cool.
I remember the name.
Yeah, we'd see a lot of shows there. There used to be a place called the Bazaar. There used to be a place, Lucy's Record Shop, and it turned into IndieNet. And when I was playing punk rock music and I was touring and stuff, play a lot of shows at Lucy's and IndieNet. That was kind of our. It was over on Church Street, right there where I think Play is where IndieNet used to be.
Nice.
Yes. Very different turn of events there. So,
But that wasn't a super safe part of town back then. I mean, it was a little rougher.
Boy, we're just jumping all over the place. I've got so many fun stories. So I remember when I was in college at this time. I was playing in a punk rock band called High Strung, and we did quite a bit of touring, and had a couple of independent record labels put out some stuff, and pretty neat. Got to play a lot of shows with a lot of bands that I kind of idolized, and we'd go out for a couple of weeks, and then we'd come back and play a show in Nashville, and we'd pack this place out. And I remember one night, you saying not the safest place. In the punk rock world, you had kind of this subgenre of punks that were these, they're basically, skinheads.
Yeah.
And they would show up at shows, and they'd pick fights, and, just act stupid. And I remember one time we were playing at Lucy's, and these two skinheads were in the front, and they kept spitting on me the whole time I'm playing. They're spitting on me. And after about 3 songs of these skinhead kids spitting on me, I lean over to the drummer, And I was like, Roger, I'm about to crack these guys' skull open with my guitar. Like, I'm going to get in a fight if they don't quit spitting on me. And they spat on me and they would hit the stage and yell profanities at us. And finally we get done. Like, I ended up not killing any of them, but we got done, and I walked out to the lobby of Lucy's record shop and where we'd have our merch.
Mm-hmm.
And these kids were buying all of our merch, like shirts, stickers, everything, man. And I walked up and I'm like, you guys were spitting on me. Like, what's apparently in that subgenre, that's what they do to the bands that they like. They spit on them, and I just, anyways, I was 18 or 19 at that time.
Huh.
Crazy, man.
I've never liked a band so much I wanted to spit on them.
No. Fascinating. I don't know how we went down that road, but there we were.
I'm talking about Nashville.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We were talking about high school just a minute ago, and somehow that led into that.
It happens.
Yeah.
Thus is the nature of conversations.
Yeah.
So tell me about you said you got into bands in high school.
I did.
When did you start playing guitar?
I think it was about 15.
Okay.
My mother, again, my mother was always just extremely supportive of anything I did. And she bought me, literally, like, took me to a pawn shop, and it was like one of those stories.
Mm-hmm.
I got some old beat up acoustic guitars, an old Ibanez acoustic, and she bought me that, and she didn't have a lot of money, but she bought me that guitar, and then she bought me a book that had a picture of where to put your fingers and do chords and major and minor scales, and I just kind of ran with it, and so again, without having God in my life, I had this beautiful girlfriend and I had a guitar, and those were gods,
and a motorcycle.
And a motorcycle. So had everything I needed. So I thought, but yeah, 15 when I started playing guitar. Okay.
And when did the band thing happen?
Met one of my childhood friends, who's also now a pastor, which is just crazy, but a guy named Jacob, good guy. He and I started getting together, and had written some songs, and he was a better singer than me, and so we just started doing something and met a couple other guys. We were juniors in high school, so I was 16 maybe. Met some other guys in our grade and started playing, and we put out a record and just put it out by ourselves, and we printed 500 copies of it. This is back in the days when you actually had to print something, and printed 500 copies of it and sold them all.
What was the name of the band?
Sidetracked. And still have those CDs. But we sold all 500 of those, and then I was like, well, crap, man, like, we should do this again. So all the money we made, about a year later, we recorded in a legit studio and printed, I think, 1,500 of them and sold all of those. And
wow.
Yeah, and I mean, it was kind of neat. And then we went to college, and it kind of fell apart. But at that time, I had started playing with, again, that band High Strung that I toured with, and hardcore punk rock band.
So you graduated at what point? 98?
Yeah, 98, spring of 98. And I had no intention. I was playing music at the time. I had no intention of going to college. And if I did go to college, I was going to go for, like sound engineer or REM, recording engineering. And found out Alicia was going to MTSU. And I always joke around. I said she's going to meet a bunch of smarter, better looking men there, so I should probably go to MTSU. So I went to MTSU, squeaked in by the skin of my teeth. Got like a 15 on my ACT or something. I mean, it was something terrible.
Are you serious?
Oh man, it was awful. Which is interesting because on the English side of it, I had like a 35 or something. And on like the math, algebra, science, I mean, it was like, I'm surprised. I mean, it was like, this is politically, it was like special needs level low. I mean, like, it was like, one would have thought there was something mentally wrong with me.
Like maybe if you'd randomly filled in the answers, you would have gotten more
probably
of them
done
right.
better. Yes. But so I went into MTSU, and I had like clept out of a bunch of my English classes and then had to take remedial math and algebra and geometry. I mean, it was just crazy. But Alicia got in. She was top 10% of our class and all that stuff. So she went to MTSU, and I followed with her. And
you guys dated through high school. The whole, I mean,
we were that couple.
from then on.
Yeah, we were that couple. We were homecoming king and queen nomination and prom king and queen nomination, and we were, Mr. and Mrs. Mount Juliet. And
So even as much of a troublemaker as you were,
everyone liked me.
Yeah.
I my teachers didn't, but I mean, everyone else liked me. I was nice to everyone. Yeah. Yeah, So, and everyone liked her too. But I wasn't a douche. I was just, I just got in a lot of trouble. I was just, mischievous. So,
that's all.
that's all. Yeah. But I got signed when we got to college. I was my first or second semester of college. We had a record label in Japan put out a record for us, and I went on tour.
In Japan?
No,
No.
in the United States, but off a record that a Japanese label put out, and almost flunked out of. It took me my first year and a half of college. I think I had like 8 credits or something. I mean, it was something terrible. It was really bad. So
That's awesome.
yeah, not a good student.
Did you live on campus your first year?
I did. Lived in Smith Hall and MTSU. I remember I have a 1956 Buick, and I talked to this old guy that I got this Buick from. I mean, this guy's probably in his late 70s. And we were talking about MTSU, and he goes, I lived in Smith Hall. Is that still there? And I was like, yep, lived in it too.
Is that the
very first one when you come around that loop?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So it's not the big tall ones that are off.
It's 3 stories.
Okay.
Small.
Did you have a roommate?
I did. I played guitar in the band I was in high school. A guy named Tony Sherman. Great guitar player. Very, very talented. Always hated his guitar tone, but he was a very good guitar player. And we used to chain smoke up in that 3rd story. And
That wasn't allowed, was it?
I don't know. They say on MTSU's campus you can't smoke at all now.
Are you serious?
Yeah, which is, I don't know how it's also a dry campus, so I mean,
Yeah, right.
I'm not really sure how that works either, but
because I went to MTSU too, and I remember the chain smokers right out in front of the dorm.
yeah, I was one of those.
That's hilarious.
And I was up, yeah, we would put a fan in the window so it would just suck all the smoke out, blow it outside. We were college boys. We were smart, so you just
brilliant, brilliant. Well thought out plan there.
I remember learning that you had to wear flip flops when you would go take a shower because you had these communal showers. And I'm like, I always had this extreme fear of I don't know. I just didn't want to be barefoot.
Yes, no. I mean, you can say what we're both thinking.
Yes,
but,
yeah. I'm withholding.
Yeah. I know people that loved living in the dorms, and I just don't understand it.
My wife was there for I think 3 out of her 4 years.
So how long did you stay in the dorms?
1 year, and then I moved into. Man, this is all the stuff I never get to say. Moved into a house on a road called East Pitts Lane, which is not far from the university, and it was moved on to East Pitts Lane, and it was kind of like a farmhouse real close to the university, and I lived there with all guys who were in different bands that I would tour with and we would play with, and a couple of guys, it's funny, a couple of them are pretty famous now. I lived with the bass player from Against Me, a guy named Andrew. He lived in the house with me. We were really good friends. A guy named Dallas Thomas, he plays in a band called Pelican up in Chicago. He's doing really well, and so we lived in this house, and I think there was 8 of us.
How many bedrooms were in the house?
Oh, well, I mean, every room turned into a bedroom. And and so it was just, it was everything one would expect about 8 punk rock kids that were touring. And it was just a mess. And we lived in this place, and we had a practice studio outside that was this converted shed that we made into a practice room. And I remember there was goats on our property. And I remember in the summer sitting there. We named all the goats, but you'd see all these goats and they'd fight.
Yeah.
And, so we'd get done practicing a set in this little room, walk out and smoke a cigarette and watch the goats fight. It was so stupid. Yeah, but we thought it was fun.
What were the goats' names?
Well, there's the only one I can remember was there was Lord Goat, because he had this pretty epic goatee, but he looked just like the satanic symbol of the goat. And so we just well, none of us were Christians, and we thought like Satan was cool and all this stuff, and we just hey, there's Lord Goat, and
I figured there had to be some good names in there.
Oh, it's the only one I can remember right now. There was one that we thought he looked like Joey Ramone because his hair came real down over his eyes, so he looked like the Ramones. But I can't remember if we named him or not. But I remember Lord Goat. I haven't thought of that in years. That's so good.
Oh man! So when you were touring off the album put out by the Japanese label,
yep.
For those that want to look it up, what was the name of that album?
Oh, there was one. It was a split called "Another Bridge Burned." I don't even know if you can get that album anymore. There's a guy named Seth Graves that lives in Nashville that he wrote an article on that record. It was like called like one of the best hardcore punk rock records in Nashville's history or something, and I didn't even have a copy of it. And it was all in Japanese, and it was like not the lyrics and stuff, but all the printing and stuff. It was a really, really cool record. I remember calling this guy Seth and being like, dude, I wrote 3 of the 8 songs on that, like, and I don't have a copy, but yeah, man, being 19 years old and having a record put out with a different language on it, it was really cool.
Yeah.
So
where you said you toured? How far and wide did you go?
We didn't go out west much. We'd go up as far as New York City, cut west a little bit, and we'd go straight down kind of, the Midwest, and then go all along the South. And
sure.
I mean, basically the whole eastern side of the country.
Okay.
To go out west, I mean, there's not really much between,
It's a long drive.
It is, just to get to California, but no, we never did that.
Tell me some show stories other than we got the skinheads that spit on you.
Show stories. I remember.
What's the worst show you ever played?
Oh boy, played a lot of bad shows. Man, there was one. So when you get up in New England, there's some weird little pockets up there, and I remember we were touring with a band called Kill Devil Hills that were fantastic. They were awesome. They were the talent, and we were kind of the entertainment. Like we were just. We weren't talented. We were just very fun to watch. But and I remember we got up into New England and we split. They had a couple of shows in one part, and we had a couple of shows in like Connecticut or something weird.
Mm-hmm.
They told me this story. They were playing at some Ivy League school, and then this Ivy League school, like one of these little small Ivy League schools somewhere, and they were playing in this kind of renovated barn.
Okay.
And they said that there was a band that played after them. So Kill Devil Hills played, and then this band got up after them. They're kind of the local, everyone, listens to this band at this
Sure.
Ivy League school. And so these kids in the middle of the show in the band start vomiting, like making themselves vomit. And so my buddy Travis and Andrew that were in Kill Devil Hills, they said, then they started looking around, and all the Ivy League students started making themselves vomit like it was some kind of ritual.
Wait.
During the show.
Kill Devil's show? Or
No. After. It was after Kill Devil's show. But like,
okay.
And so they're just kind of like, we got to get out of here. Like there's like some kind of, we just stepped into some cult. And so about the day that was happening with them, we were in Connecticut and ended up, we didn't play at this, there's like a hippie commune, but we didn't play at the hippie commune. But the guy that booked us lived at this commune, and it was like full on, everyone naked, like hippie commune.
Nice.
And so you got us, yeah, there's this theory that like nudity would be great, but the people that live these kinds of lifestyles are not the kinds of people that one wants to be around while they're unclothed. But we played this show, and I remember staying on this hippie commune where there was no running water, there was no, and being 19 years old and thinking this is not what I thought. This is not what I thought touring would be.
So wait a minute. So you actually did play the show on the commune?
It was off the commune. It was somewhere in Connecticut, some weird little town in Connecticut. We played at this club, and had a great turnout and everything, and then stayed at this commune. In the
Okay.
punk rock world, you don't like stay in hotels and stuff. You slept on floors and you'd tour all over the place. And at the end of the night, someone would be like, "Hey, you guys want to stay at our house?" And that's just kind of what we did.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I don't imagine the commune crowd as being super into punk rock. So that's
The guy was in a band called it was seriously something like Death Bunny or something like that. It was like some weird, real, sludgy. It was heavy, but not. It's just weird, man. People are weird.
so you were trying to tour and go to school at the same time?
Yeah, I wasn't doing the school thing very well. So what happened was, I did that for a while. High Strung ended up kind of falling apart, and played with a bunch of other bands after that, kind of here and there. Never really stuck with one for very long, but just playing shows for different people, filling in, doing a little bit of stuff in studios and stuff with people, but nothing serious.
Mm-hmm.
In 2002, so fast forwarding a couple of years, and I'm not proud of this part of the story, but in 2002, I had a couple of friends. I was in between bands. I wasn't really, I think I was working at Hastings, a music store. And
Heck yeah.
yeah, I was the video manager. But I had a couple of friends have this bright idea that we were going to start stealing audio equipment and visual equipment from convention centers, and they were going to sell it online. And that's when eBay had first come out. So that's what we did in 2002. We started stealing stuff and selling it, and we'd split it 3 ways. And
Wow. There was enough of it around for you to steal that this was a...
yeah, in the summer of 2002, by the time we were done, we had about $9,000 a piece.
oh my gosh.
So we had, $30,000 between the 3 of us. And we ended up in the summer of 2002 taking a trip. We flew down to Miami, South Beach, hopped on a boat in South Beach, and did 10 days in the Caribbean, and came back to South Beach and partied. Yeah, I blew almost all that money on that trip.
Wow.
And came back to the States and was broke, and that. Go ahead.
And Alicia knows about all of this.
She does. It's not something we like to talk about. That was actually the trip that I cheated on her. We've been dating for 5 years.
Okay.
And I cheated on her on that trip. I mean, of course, she knows that and remembers that, and she knows I tell that story.
But I mean, prior to that, with all of the touring, and partying, you'd been faithful to her that time.
Yeah, I never, I never cheated on her on tour or did anything like that. I was always very faithful to her.
Yeah,
I loved her. I mean, I was just so enamored by her, and I think in 2002, it was a combination of I was hanging out with some guys that just weren't a good influence. Again, no God in my life, no direction, no purpose, no. I struggle with affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably because of a lack of ever getting it from my father, and I had a young woman show me attention, and I just fell for it.
How messed up were you at the time?
I wasn't intoxicated. I had sobered up quite a bit. I wasn't smoking weed at that time. I wasn't, I'd had a cocaine issue when I was younger. I did some time with a place called Cumberland Heights because I had struggled with cocaine addiction for a while. But I'd cleaned up of most of that stuff. I was drinking a lot, but that was about it.
So, I mean, you said you were partying in the Caribbean.
Yeah, just a lot of drinking.
Okay.
And I would buy everyone else's drinks, and it was gambling a lot. There's casinos on the boats and stuff, and just acting like an idiot. And again, came back to the States, partied for a couple more days in South Beach. I remember, do you remember Yo MTV Raps?
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran into Ed Lover on the beach and hung out with him for a little bit. It was, I mean, no one cared, but
Yeah.
so, but I mean, I was like, hey, it's Ed Lover, and no one remembers Ed Lover. But anyway, so came back to Murfreesboro, broke, and went back to work at Hastings. Never told Alicia what had happened, of course. And again, I guess the big turning point is one day working at Hastings, I passed out while I was working, had a blackout. And I just kind of assumed it was because of all the stupid partying I had done, but had a couple more blackouts, had one in front of Alicia, and she convinced me to go see a doctor. And
And when you black out, you're talking hit the floor.
yeah,
Done.
I mean, yeah,
For a few minutes.
not a few minutes. I'd just like almost like a flicker. I would go completely black and then just shoot back up.
Huh.
It happened several times, and Alicia convinced me to go see a neurologist.
Yeah.
And I did in 2002, and I ended up not being this, but had kind of a multiple sclerosis scare. They thought maybe I was in the beginning stages of MS, and what happened though is one of the doctors kind of warned me if I didn't take it seriously and kind of change my lifestyle, warned me kind of what would happen physically to me.
Right.
And in late August, no, that's wrong. Late summer of 2002, so maybe July, body started shutting down, lost a bunch of weight. Had to be in a wheelchair for a while because my legs were all messed up. And
they don't know what it was?
Well, I guess from what I saw several, neurologists about it, and they did a bunch of tests. I think with MS, it's kind of a hard thing to identify until it gets to a certain stage. I'm not really sure, but I did treatments for it, and I did like B12 stuff where they would shoot you up with all these B vitamins and stuff like this. But what ended up happening is because my health was deteriorating, I couldn't work, I couldn't play music. I stopped being invited to hang out with people because I just looked kind of grotesque and sick. And so I kind of lost everything. And then at the pinnacle of losing everything, it had come out to Alicia. She had found out that I had cheated on her.
And you weren't the one to tell her?
I was not the one to tell her.
Wow.
So I lost her too.
Yeah.
And which I get. I totally understand. And so anyway, she left. And at that time, we had dated for 5 years. And when she left, I locked myself in my room. I had gotten a bunch of vodka, and I decided I was going to kill myself. And locked myself in my room on a Monday and drank for about 3 days straight. And on a Wednesday, I woke up and for some crazy reason, didn't want to kill myself, and drove down the street. There's a Pentecostal church, United Pentecostal Church in Murfreesboro. There's one, and I staggered in there on a Wednesday morning. And the reason why I went to that church is because my grandfather was a Pentecostal pastor. So I said, it's the only kind of church I'd ever been around. Staggered in there and went and saw the pastor. Good guy. His name's Phil. Went and saw him and told him the whole story, and literally laid down on his floor and just cried. And if anyone's ever done so many bad things in their life, that all I knew to say was I'm sorry. And anyways, that long story short, it's the day I received Christ, and I sat down on his couch and felt like someone had hit me with electricity. And it was crazy. And he kind of explained the gospel to me and talked to me and said, hey, I'd like to see you at church this weekend. And that was kind of the turning point. Still had a lot of unresolved issues. Alicia still hated me. I was still sick.
Yep.
These kinds of things, but I had energy and I had kind of purpose now. So I went home though. I cleaned up. I was pretty disgusting. Cleaned up. Had kind of this renewed sense of energy. Drove down the street. A buddy of mine owned a coffee shop in town called the Red Rose. Used to play shows there and hang out there all the time. And went to the Red Rose, asked him if he had any work, and gave me a job. Started working third shift as a barista. and which was great. Red
Yep.
Rose was a cool place, and yeah, I remember being a Christian in that place. And for anyone who listens to this, they're not going to know what the Red Rose was, but it was like the LGBT hangout. It was the hangout for all the nudists that lived up on Short Mountain. It was the hangout for all the punk rock kids and weirdos and atheists. And they sold records in the back, and then they did suspensions where they would hang you by meat hooks. A guy named Seth. And I was the only Christian that hung out at that place. So it was cool. I got to share the gospel with a lot of interesting people.
Now, I've heard this story a couple times.
Yeah.
This is why I hesitated, because I was trying to decide whether to go back or not. I seem to remember you saying that you were still drunk when you got into the pastor's office.
I was probably a little hungover. Again, I had been drinking for 3 days. Well, two days, I guess.
So was the plan just to drink yourself to death?
Yeah, I was too much of a coward to do it any other way. I had tried to kill myself once with pills. Once, when I say tried, I guess I didn't try. I chickened out. I had a gun in my mouth the second time.
Mm.
And then I was just too much of a coward to slit my wrists or, jump off of a building. I thought I'd literally just drown myself, drink myself to death. So...
Your dad's been out of the story for a while here.
Yeah.
What was going on with him and you that whole time?
We
from high
didn't
school?
talk. My dad stopped talking to me when I was 17, and we didn't talk again till I became a Christian. I was 23. And
6 years.
yeah, about 6 years we didn't talk. And we built back a relationship when I had changed my life, and without just beating my dad up. He married a woman that has never liked me, and had never had kids, and so it was always just tough to have a relationship with my father. And the woman he married was the other woman. So it was always tough, but we did our best for about, we had a good relationship from about 23 to when I was about 32. So we had about 9 years there where, we had a decent stretch. It had its tension, but about 6 years ago again, he stopped talking to me. And so, it's been about 6 years again that I haven't had a relationship with my father, but kind of moved on. I know that sounds cold, but I feel like I've done all I could do there and just kind of accepted it.
Yeah.
So.
Tell me about your mom. She stayed in Lebanon?
No, my mother lives in St. Louis again. She's been up there for a while. My mom's a really good lady. She, she's, I don't believe in luck, but my mom was dealt some pretty bad cards. She's got a family that they're not altogether bad people, but my mother was kind of the big success story from her family, and just a hard worker, good woman.
What'd she do?
She right now, my mom's almost 70, so she drives a bus for I think she works for the school system up there, but she also drives a bus for this crazy canoe trip place, in the summer, so. But she's been really good with her money. She still owns a house in Chicago that she rents out, and
Wow.
yeah, she's a good lady, man. She's just had a rough life. So
you're at the Red Rose.
Yep.
You're working. You and Jesus are besties now.
We are. Yes.
What happened then?
Well, Elise and I still had that to fix.
Yeah.
And so for about 5-6 months, I begged her to come to church with me, and
So she still talked to you?
not really.
Okay.
Not really. And rightfully so. And again, my memory is so terrible, but I'd call her and ask her to, hang out and stuff, and I had no right to. I had really messed her over, but I think she saw a change in me. I think she saw it was good. My wife was not a believer. She was basically an atheist.
Okay.
And but I think she saw this change in me, and that was intriguing to her. And I'd given up music, and I'd stopped, and was going to church and working hard and doing well at MTSU finally, And yeah, it took me 6 years to get my bachelor's, but for about 5-6 months, I tried to get her to come to church with me, and she wouldn't. I remember at the end of '02, I was praying up at the altar one night at this Pentecostal church, and I said something along the lines of, God, if you never give me Alicia, I'll accept it, as long as I have you, God.
Right.
It was maybe a week or two after that, she got a hold of me and said, I'm willing to go to church with you. I'll go with you. And she meant once. She didn't mean like consistently. But I said, okay, that'd be great. I'd love to take you and show you what it kind of looks like and feels like. And so she decided in January, I think, of '03 to give it a shot. So.
And was it because this I have that's weird.
It is.
A science-minded atheist,
yeah,
who's been messed over by a guy,
yeah,
agrees to go to church once. Was it just to find out what in the hell was going on with you?
I guess I've never really asked her that. I think she really did love me a lot. Even after I broke her heart, my wife is the most loyal, faithful, just a wonderful person. And I think maybe she saw a light at the end of the tunnel, or maybe, I'm not 100% sure. I've never asked her that.
Maybe you just wore her down.
Yeah, that's a possibility. But she came, and there was a service she came to, which is also a really great story. But if one has never been to a Pentecostal church, they would do pretty crazy services in the morning, and then at night they'd have extra crazy services. And she came to an extra crazy service. And
wait, for the uninitiated,
yes,
what are we talking about? Extra crazy.
like people running around, everyone's speaking in tongues, people are laying on the floor, beating the snot out of tambourines.
And you mean literally running around, doing laps around the inside of the church?
Yes, all there's
speaking in tongues is sounds like gibberish.
Yes, there's I'm not embellishing or exaggerating all of this. It happened.
Right.
And I was used to it.
Yeah.
Because I'd been going there for a while. And I bring my atheist ex-girlfriend. She was flabbergasted by it, man. She leaned over to me at one point during the service and said, "Get me the big expletive, out of this building." So, ironically enough, though, I was on my way to take her home. She basically had a huge panic attack in my car, and I turned around without her knowing, brought her right back to the church. And
wow,
I did. I basically carried her in and laid her down on the back pew. And that was a night, man. My pastor came down, prayed with her. Literally all the church was praying for her, and she gave her life to Christ and got baptized that night. And
wow,
it was crazy, man. And we still walked slow, but we eventually started dating again. And a couple years later, I think it was about a year and a half later, we were married.
How'd you propose?
Oh man, slick. I didn't have any money, so I had to be creative. I took a camera, and at the time I was learning how to edit on Avid.
Okay.
And I had Avid, and my pastor was a good editor, so he kind of taught me. So I went down to all the first places where we had, like the first place I ever saw her, went back to our old high school gym and videoed and talked, and went back to our first date, first place we kissed, all these things. And then the video ended with the couch that her and I were sitting at. I had this apartment, this really cool loft apartment, and the video was me on the couch that we were watching the video on. And I said, "This is the most important first place." And I said, "This is where I ask you to marry me." And I pulled out the ring on the video, but I was actually holding the ring, sitting there next to her.
Right.
It was pretty slick.
That's good.
Felt pretty good about myself.
Yeah.
I still have that.
Do you really?
I do.
Oh man.
On DVD.
Do
I do. I still got it.
I think I need to have that
It's pretty good.
as an extra special feature on the
Yeah.
the podcast.
It's pretty good. It's the standard by which all men should propose to their wives, I think. So it's
So, all right. So that was 2003 that you proposed.
no, that would have been. Yeah, no, yeah, maybe you're right. Because I think we got married in 04.
Okay.
Yeah, October of 04. So it might have been. It was Christmas 2003.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Man, so you finally graduated in 2005?
I think I graduated. No, I graduated in August of 04.
Okay.
August of 04. So I started in 98, graduated in August of 04.
Oh, so you were doing summer classes too.
I did. And went to work at Smyrna High School. Got a job as an English teacher. Got hired
Straight out of school?
I got hired a month before I walked.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
How was that?
Teaching?
Yeah.
I enjoyed it a lot. I was disappointed by the bureaucracy of that world. It was there was a lot of politics. But I love teaching. Love the students. Did high school, sophomore and junior level English. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
That's some good stuff.
It was good. My wife was a chemist at the time. She was working in a lab. And it was good, man. We lived in a cool loft apartment in kind of like the downtown Murfreesboro area. And
Did you really?
yeah, it was cool, man. Yeah, we had a really neat... She could walk to... there was a while she was working at... back when the hospital used to be by the square, she could walk to work, and it was really
that's
neat,
awesome.
man. Yeah, yeah. It was cool.
You have kids.
2 kids.
When did that happen?
My oldest is 10. My youngest is 6.
Oh, so we're still a little ways off from that.
Yeah. We were married, gosh. Yeah, and so when we left the church, the pregnancy, because you're asking about our kids, we had left the church that we had gotten saved at. I ended up working for that church as a youth pastor for a while.
Did you do that while teaching, or was
I
that
quit
after?
teaching. I quit teaching because they offered me a full-time job. So I was at Smyrna 04 and 05, left there, and yeah, started working at the church, left the church because I felt like God wanted us to start the experience. And that was in 08 I left. And if anyone remembers the economy in 08, not the best time to quit a job.
No.
And so when we started our church, we had no support financially, morally, anything. It was just us. And I left my job, very cushy job at a church. Not only did they take care of me financially there, I had a big office. I would travel and speak. I'd get asked to speak at conferences and stuff, and would make good money doing that. And
Yeah.
got to do some writing and stuff like that. It was cool. And I quit. And about a month after I quit, we were excommunicated from the denomination. And so none of the, we had no friends, no family, no nothing.
And why did that happen?
Well, theologically, the United Pentecostal Church, the 2 big things they hang their hats on are they believe you have to speak in tongues to be saved, and they don't believe in the Trinity. They're called oneness Pentecostals.
Okay.
So we did believe in the Trinity, and we didn't think you had to speak in tongues to be saved. And so the 2 big ones, we were heretics. That's why they kind of disfellowshipped us. So about a month after we left, we were officially excommunicated. And I can't remember what it was. It might have been a week or 2 after that. Found out we were pregnant.
Nice.
So it was the worst timing. We thought, but God knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
So we had our first child about 3 weeks before we started the experience.
Yep.
She was born on the 21st of January, started the experience on the 15th of February. Yeah.
And February is a good month to start a church in.
I think so.
Yeah.
People are settled in.
Yeah. Everybody's looking for a new experience.
That's right. New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. To not go to hell. This year I'm not going to go to hell. Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought losing weight was hard.
Yes. Yeah. Eternal damnation. That's quite a motivator.
Oh my goodness. What scares you?
Failure terrifies me. Failure terrifies me, and irrelevance terrifies me. The thought that if I were to be gone, there wouldn't be any kind of footprint terrifies me. It's something that I feel like I need to work on, but also something that I'm not prepared to let go of. I think it motivates me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as a Christian, it sounds cliche, but it shouldn't be about me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's value in making your mark. I think there can also be, it can also be destructive to constantly be thinking about what is your significance versus, what is the greater thing? What is the kingdom of God's significance versus, Corey Trimble's little blip on the map, but yeah, failure and irrelevance. Those are my fears.
Where do you think that came from?
I think father wounds are deep. Anyone who has father wounds, they are significant. And I see a counselor once a month, and I love counselors. I think they're great.
Amen to that.
Yeah, I think more people should see them.
Yep.
I think my lack of affirmation and my lack of fatherly involvement has pushed me to somehow achieve things that maybe are ridiculous at times. So, yeah.
Okay. What do you regret?
Regret the times I've hurt my wife. Whenever people say I wouldn't change a thing, I think they're full of crap. If I had a time machine, there's so much I would undo. I hate the fact that I've hurt my wife. Even things that happened so long ago, I just hate that they happened.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Who is God?
Who is God? Boy, what a big question. I believe in the very, I guess you'd say, orthodox view of God. I believe God's the creator. I believe God is the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. I have a fear of God, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it in the best possible way. I feel like I understand God's power. I feel like I've seen a life that is absent of God. I've lived the life that is absent of God.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a proper respect for God that if I don't involve him in my plans, I'll self-destruct. God is absolutely my Savior. He is my Father. I also feel just like the Bible says about the Holy Spirit, he has been my comforter and my counselor, and he has taken rubble that I've created and somehow made something valuable, and he's blessed me. It's humbling to hear you ask the question, who is God? He's so much, and he's so much that I don't even feel like I've scratched the surface on God yet. I dedicate my whole life to studying him and his word and teaching it, and I feel like we haven't even begun to understand God.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's a good question.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's a fun one to end on, too.
I'd like to hear more people's response to that. I'd love to hear what other people say to that question.
Well, stay tuned.
That's good. It's clever.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about that. Oh man, Corey, thank you.
Oh yeah, it's a pleasure.
If you couldn't tell, we had a pretty good time recording that. We stayed up pretty late. Typically, I try to record during the day because people are a little more alert, but Corey and I are both night owls, so it worked out. If you would like to see what Corey looks like and you don't want to go to church where I go to church, that is totally okay because I've made his portrait just like I make portraits for all of the people that come down and sit with me. You can see that portrait on our website. The website is butenoughAbout.me. That's right, http://butenoughAbout.me. You can also connect with us on Facebook or Instagram. Both of those are But Enough About Me Podcast. If you'd like to leave ratings or feedback, you can do that on iTunes and Stitcher, I believe, are the only two that currently allow that. I'm sure that'll get around eventually to other places. We love that feedback. What we love even more is when you share the podcast directly with your friends and coworkers and neighbors and other people you know. You can even share it with people you don't know. We owe a big thank you to Mr. Casey Jones. He is the one responsible for our graphics. You can see his work at iamcaseyjones.com. He made the logo, excuse me, and I don't want to shoulder him with the burden of all of my lame attempts at graphics. He made the logo. And the theme music comes from Mr. Jace Hackman. You can hear more of his work at jacehackman.com. Your homework this week, as every week, is to go find someone you don't know very well, buy them a cup of coffee, and ask them to tell you their story. If you're feeling spunky, get your cell phone out, put a voice recorder app on there, go somewhere relatively quiet, and put it in between the two of you and have them tell you their story on record. You could send it to us, and maybe, just maybe, we can figure out a way to share those stories with other people. Thanks again for listening. My name is Tyler Andrews, but enough about me. I'll see you guys back here in 2 weeks' time.